Welcome to Going Green. Water, a natural resource that is sometimes taken for granted in countries like Switzerland. But with the increasing scarcity, investors are diving in. Stefan Schütz from the Tareno Global Water Solutions Fund is joining me now to discuss why water investments are not just a drop in the ocean. Thank you so much for joining us, Stefan.
Thanks for having me.
So how to make money with water?
Well, great question, thanks. First, I would like to bring up one aspect. We're not making money with the commodity water itself. What we're trying to do is finding companies that help to address the imbalance between supply and demand. The imbalance is huge, and the only way to bring back this into equilibrium is to find solutions to be as efficient as possible with the resource of water. So
why do you think this imbalance is so huge?
Because there are three big trends on the demand side, which is urbanization, population growth, and climate change. And on the other side, the supply is given. I mean, the amount of water available has not changed over time, so we can basically assume that all the water we consume today has once passed through the stomach of a dinosaur.
What do you mean, Stefan?
Well, if you imagine that the supply of water we have on the planet has never changed since water exists. So the water we're using today has been used by the Romans, the Aztecs, our forefathers, and, as a matter of fact, by the dinosaurs as well.
Why are investments into water a good idea?
Well, the thing is, the demand drivers won't go away, and we will never be able to have a substitute for water. It's a resource that is necessary to humanity. It is essential to human life. And therefore, the demand or the need for investment will always be there. I mean, one key aspect of investing in water is that we deal with listed stocks. So if you need protection from market volatility, water stocks won't be a good place to hide.
If we talk about equities and global stocks, now October saw the sharpest drop in equity markets since 2012, the sharpest monthly fall. Also, your fund got marked down by some 9% because of the US-China trade war, hawkish central banks, etc. So you're not immune at all against these market risks.
Yeah, exactly. You know everything it needs. So yeah, that's true. I mean, we can't hide from volatility. What we have learned from past, let's say, downturns is that due to the solid fundamentals, due to the huge demand for water technologies, stocks tend to recover faster than they do in probably other areas.
So what is the correlation between global stocks and investments into water?
Well, it's probably one. Correlation is very high.
What are the biggest risks, would you say, at the moment for investors allocating some of their, portfolio into the water sector?
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with listed equities, so probably mostly industrial companies, so the economic cycle is an important issue. Then, of course, cost inflation, cost of capital, the trade war, as it's a global business, trade and tariffs do play a role there. And then geopolitics, of course, those are the risk factors we're monitoring closely at the moment.
So at Tareno, what is your investment approach? You are focused on the ESG, of course, as well, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and also big data and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's true. Big data and artificial intelligence, that's part of our ESG screening. We're working together with a provider from Germany who is using big data on environmental factors. So they're basically screening news headlines on positive and negative criteria and then are aggregating this into a score. And this allows us to have let's say, a daily overview of our ESG profile, which is in contrast to other providers who have just a yearly review of the ESG performance of the companies.
Water scarcity because of demographic changes and climate change is a huge issue. Also because there is no substitute for water. We will need it forever and ever. So how does this impact the price and investments? It is a key factor, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a key factor. I mean, it's hard to judge the development of the water price itself because there will always be intentions to make water available to everyone. It's a human right. So I think what we will see is more private investment from corporations into water infrastructure in order to provide the resource. And I guess most of the cost will be borne by the industry and not by the end consumer or the government itself. So, I mean, for example, the mining industry is known for many years now to have mining companies investing into water infrastructure in order to help the society and the ecosystem.
You mentioned it, Stefan, water is a human right. It should be a common good for everybody on this planet. But why can you make money with it? Should it not be free?
Yeah, that's a good point. So, as I've just mentioned, we're not trying to make money with the commodity. We're trying to make money with technologies around the usage of water. But to your point, I mean, if something is free, available to everyone, then this is probably not pushing innovation and is not pushing the awareness for efficiency. So I think water should have a price. Everywhere on the planet, maybe a different one, but giving it away for free, I think would lead to an increased water consumption instead of a reduced one. So yeah, it's a difficult question, but
in terms of specific areas and water infrastructure, where are the biggest opportunities for investors right now?
Well, very big opportunities. We see them in the industry where it comes to water reuse. So managing water inside a closed loop without having discharged into the ecosystem. This requires certain applications, pump system, filtration media, and so on. And then another point or another area where we do see a lot of investments is asset management, meaning how does a utility manage its distribution system? And then obviously this is down to leakage detection and pipe monitoring and the digitalization of distribution systems. I mean, most of the infrastructure was built in a pre-digital world, so utilities do not even know where their valves and hydrants are.
Leaks are a massive problem, leakages. How to face this and what kind of investment options are there?
Yeah, I mean, today many utilities use the break and fix method, so they only fix a pipe when it breaks. But just because a pipe is 100 years old doesn't mean that it's not working. So proactively digging up sectors and replacing pipes is not an option. It costs too much money. So there are systems, or there is a need for systems that help to supervise or to monitor the infrastructure. For example, through cameras or taking acoustic signals with the flow within the pipe to address these issues, to find leaks.
At Tareno, you have your biggest holdings, allocation of portfolio in the United States, about 50+% and only about 6% here in Switzerland. Is this where you put all your eggs at the moment, despite US-China trade wars?
Yeah, I mean, the issue with the country allocation is we try to be as pure as possible or a pure provider of the investment theme, and most of the listed water utilities are listed in the US, and most of the relevant companies are listed in the US as well. So it's to a lesser extent the conviction towards the US. It is rather because many companies are listed, are US listed.
We have, for example, Danaher Corporation, Xylem, Pentair, etc., that are all listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Exactly. Why New York? Why don't they list in Hong Kong or here in Switzerland even?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, water is a mature industry. For example, if you think about pumps, companies providing pumps, they have been around for 150 years. So it's old economy business, and that's basically why they are listed in mostly old economy countries.
How do you see the competition shaping up in that case? Do you see a shift probably towards Asia or other emerging markets?
Not much, not much.
What is the biggest hurdle in that case?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably due diligence, maybe market liquidity. Today, most of the companies try to list in areas where access to investors is solid, and that's probably the case why we don't see that many listings in
some other
countries.
Areas that are of interest to water investors are irrigation, desalination, and also exploration. Which one would you pick if you were an investor?
Well, those are all difficult end markets. Probably desal is going to pick up a little bit.
Why?
They had attracted a lot of interest in 2007 before the financial crisis. Then a lot of projects were stopped as financing was not secured anymore. And now this issue is picking up a little bit, especially in the Middle East, in Africa, in Southern Europe. But you always need the topography to work in favor of desalination, right? You can't move water over very long distances because it is heavy, it consumes a lot of energy. That's what makes it expensive. So,
water investments are not that new. We had, for example, Pictet here in Switzerland. That was at the very beginning of this movement. But now more and more players are entering this market. Is it still niche, or would you say it's mainstream now?
I wouldn't consider it mainstream. It is a big niche. Within all the sustainable themes, I think it is still not too big. It is not considered fancy. As I said, it is mature. It is an old economy business, so there aren't those impressive growth rates you probably have with alternative energies. So no, I wouldn't consider it a niche.
Here in Switzerland, though, we have the Global Water Fund, we have Swisscanto, also Allianz, all launching global water funds. What kind of competition does this bring to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I think it's good if we have awareness. So all these competitors are attracting money into the water scene, which is, even as they are competing for the assets of clients, they are doing something good for the investment universe in general. Yeah, but I think there were a lot of ETFs emerging as well. But the investment into water is pretty stable.
You mentioned water ETFs. We had, for example, Guggenheim S&P Global Water Index that was launched as well. What kind of outlook do you have for water ETFs?
Well, they grew because they are cheap and they're an easy way to invest. So they won't go away soon. Our argument for active investment is there is always a side business within the companies. For example, a company that competes into the pump industry, they probably sell to wastewater treatment and they sell into oil and gas. So we think it's important to have a view on the entire portfolio of a company and act accordingly if fundamentals of businesses outside of water change. And that's something the ETF does not offer.
Stefan, so looking ahead to 2019, what type of water utility stocks would you go for?
Yeah, we would stay with water utilities in the US. The regulatory framework is favorable. Regulators are open to investments. They're open to tariff increases in order to finance this investment. And we would probably underweight European utilities as the regulatory framework is just too clouded.
And in Switzerland as well, because of nationalization and regulations, so no investments in water utilities here in Switzerland?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, water utility business in Switzerland is nationalized anyway. There are no private providers, so nationalization is not that kind of a threat, but yes, no investments in.
Thank you so much for your time, Stefan.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.